57.
Welcome back. Fair or not, a lot of people believe the prosecution is 0 for 2 in Florida. Zimmerman and Dunn. Dunn, even though there were multiple convictions on attempted murder. Still, the Michael Dunn trial, they wound up being hung on the most important count, first-degree murder for the death of Jordan Davis. The prosecutor is taking another shot at it, and now in a New Day exclusive, Angela Corey opens up about everything from Florida's Stand Your Ground law to the people calling for her resignation. Can she hang on is a real question. She also talked about the self-defense law itself and what it is doing to justice in Florida. Here's what she had to say. People look at Zimmerman, they look at Dunn, the outcome in those two trials, and they say young black men aren't being protected by the law. You disagree?
I completely disagree. The focus needs to be on all violence against all races, all ages, and it doesn't matter who's on either side of that gun. It's all a violation of Florida law if the facts are supported by what the law says is illegal.
The speculation is Trayvon Martin shoots George Zimmerman in the same situation. Jordan Davis shoots Michael Dunn in the same situation. They wind up getting thrown into jail, and the key is somewhere else. But when you flip the races the way they are now, people walk.
That's completely false. That's not what our cases show. And until the media focuses on all cases or a sampling of all cases, the public will never understand that that simply is not true. Trayvon Martin's death was a tragedy. Jordan Davis's death was a tragedy. All victims who die at the hand of illegal actions are tragedies, and we need to put the focus on all of them, not just isolated cases.
But can you understand why, when you hear about a case like Trayvon Martin, where the kid's doing nothing wrong, he gets followed, we don't know what happens, but they wind up getting into a fight, the kid winds up winning a fist fight, basically, being in control of it, and he gets shot and killed, and yet there's no punishment. You can understand why that outrages people.
Oh, absolutely, I can understand that. I do. But what people have to understand is we have a high burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. Self-defense is a tough law for us to overcome. It's an affirmative defense that we have a huge uphill battle overcoming, especially where there's injury to someone. We fought so hard for that conviction, and the jury simply could not find him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. Why would the prosecution ever take a hit for that?
Because people feel it's a pretty obvious situation, in that whether it was the law or how the case was argued, a man who killed somebody when he didn't need to is walking around free, and a young man is gone.
I understand that, Chris. I do understand their sentiment, and we were hurt by that as well. But what they have to understand is that had nothing to do with race. It has to do with the laws of justifiable use of deadly force.
A lot of criticism about all of this stuff we've heard of coming out of prison about Michael Dunn. All the letters he wrote, the phone calls that seem to show such obvious character assumptions that he held. You say we didn't put those in trial because we couldn't put those in trial. Explain.
There was a motion in limine filed by the defense on the numerous jail phone calls and letters. The judge granted it in part and denied it in part. So to all the people out there, again, who are saying that we should have put in all of the phone calls and letters, they might want to read the Florida Rules of Evidence.
You're going to retry the case. I mean, many of us, including me, thought that this was an easy case for the state to win. I was shocked by the verdict.
This is our system. This jury got a lot of time to deliberate, and we believe they did the best that they could, considering Florida's affirmative defense of justifiable use of deadly force.
Does the law need to change?
You know, Chris, I believe prosecutors and the Sheriff's Association are in favor of the former laws that we had on justifiable use of deadly force. And we do believe that before someone should engage in a physical altercation, or especially an altercation where deadly force is used, we do believe there should be a duty to retreat.
Who's keeping the law from changing? We had Sheriff Judd on, who was saying stand your ground works just fine, because before you decide to use your weapon, realize if you're wrong, you're going to jail. No, that's not true. That's what the Michael Dunn case just showed. He was wrong, he used his weapon, and he's not going to jail. Who's stopping this law from being changed to reflect what most of the states have, which is you have to think before you kill somebody. You have to think about getting out of a situation before you think about taking lethal action.
Chris, Michael Dunn is going to jail. He's still in jail. He went back to jail where he's
Right.
been, and he's still in jail, and he's going to be sentenced. Mr. Dunn is looking at 90 years in Florida State Prison with 60 years of minimum mandatory. How anyone could be unhappy with these verdicts, knowing we intend to retry count 1, is beyond me, but we're going to keep going into the courtroom and fighting for justice for our victims without regard to what people are saying, even though what they're saying is completely uninformed and ill-informed.
We covered a lot of topics. We'll have more of this interview for you on CNN, but really important for people. I mean, we've all been following this, Don, especially you, so passionate after the verdict. When you hear a prosecutor say that the law needs to change, that there needs to be a duty to retreat, you have to remember what that does in the law. Is it gives responsibility to wrong actions, that if you just decide to engage with force, let alone lethal force, and you could have done something else to avoid a situation, you can't claim self-defense. That's not the case in Florida, whether stand your ground is used as a defense or not, because stand your ground is in the actual self-defense law.
And this goes beyond the castle doctrine, right?
Much.
Protect your home. This goes way beyond.
It can be anywhere.
Right.
George Zimmerman.
Right.
He wasn't at his house. He was on a public street. But because it says in this self-defense law, you have the right to stand your ground, it means you don't have to think that when you and I get into an altercation, God forbid, you don't have to think, can I get out of this before I take him on?
Right.
And once you do that, you start rewarding bad choices.
Even if you started, and then all of a sudden you say you find yourself in a situation where, oh my gosh, now I can't handle what I've started. I feel like my life is in danger. Boom, you can whip out a gun, or you can use more force than necessary.
And going beyond
the
Michael Dunn, the verdict in the Michael Dunn case and even the George Zimmerman case, she makes, I think, an important and interesting point that there are more cases that they try that kind of involve these laws than we cover in the media. There are more cases beyond this that should be taken into account.
They have a good record down there. She says, I punish black on black crime, black on white crime, white on black crime.
But every
I
case
punish all of it.
impacts a family. I'm not trying to diminish what happened to Jordan Davis and what happened to his family at all. That's for sure.
But the high-profile ones are the ones that get attention, and those are the ones that can make the change.
Right. And what I
that
argued
might
to
be
the
the motivation for
prosecutor, and she didn't disagree, is it's good that we're focusing on these cases because this is a discussion you need to have. You may take exception with, oh, I don't want to hear about Dunn anymore. I don't want to hear about Zimmerman. But you need to because that's what keeps the discussion going.
And she agrees that there's a problem with law.
That's
you know
right.
What I mean?
And you know who else does? And you know who else really matters here, maybe more than anybody else? The parents of Jordan Davis. They're going to be with us next hour. They're going to talk about what the verdict means to them as a family, how they feel about retrying those charges against Michael Dunn that respect Jordan Davis's death, their son, and what they think of the law and what they want you to know coming up.